It's been in the works for 15 years and we're taking a tour today. Find out how this historical site is putting a new twist on tradition.
And then there were 3. We'll show you highlights from a 150-mile trip a Waper Lake trio made for a very worthy cause.
Hello, I'm Ron Hawkins.
And I'm Tracy Minarchuk, and this is Lake Area Beat. You can see we're on location at a historic site with a new look.
We're out at the Boatworks Commons where we'll be learning more about the site a bit later. But first, opiate abuse is on the rise and it's leading to an increase in heroin overdoses.
A police task force has enlisted the help of people who know firsthand the destruction these substances cause.
You always knew when Ryan was here. I used to say it was like a freight train coming through the house because his presence was just everywhere. I think about the times that, him sitting at the breakfast bar, telling jokes and sometimes they were inappropriate and, but that's how he would try and get a rise out of you.
Lori Lewis has known the role of wife, mother, and nurse well. But these days, she finds herself in a very different position, one she never imagined.
Please welcome Lori Lewis as she comes to the
She's reaching out publicly to discuss the dangers of heroin, but it's what happened in her home where this new and heartbreaking chapter began. Her oldest son, Ryan, battled a heroin addiction for several years, a battle he ultimately lost.
He told me that Ryan had overdosed, and for me, I just thought, okay, well, that's happened twice before that I know of, so what does that mean, and then he told me he had died, and at that point, it's just, you want so bad to be back a minute before, and, it was just hard to hear. I was in shock, because there was no more helping.
And Lori struggled to help Ryan when she first learned he was using heroin. After several overdoses and several stays in treatment facilities, he died just days after entering a sober house.
I'm sure he just thought he could use one more time. That's what he would tell us before is, I want to quit. I want to try and get through this and have a life of recovery, but it's so hard. And I'm sure he thought he could do it just one more time. So our lives are not the same. It's a struggle every single day. And that's why we're talking about it and being very open is because we don't want any other family to have to go through this.
As part of a community partnership, Lori has teamed up with law enforcement to bring awareness to the dangers of addiction.
He then told me that my son was dead. He died that morning of a heroin overdose.
With drug abuse spiking in the past several years, the forums are designed with a specific message. Addiction can happen to anyone.
A lot of people are just unwilling to say, they're saying my child's an honor student, my child's involved in sports and activities, and as a parent I can understand that and say that's what you want for your child is to be involved in other activities and you hope that they stay away from some of the dangers that we'll talk about today. What we're seeing is that just isn't the case.
I just have always been genetically predisposed to addiction.
The increase in heroin use in large part stems from prescription drugs, whether prescribed, purchased, or stolen. According to the Ramsey County Medical Examiner, opiate-related overdose deaths increased in 2014 from 37 to 42. But when the pills run out and the money to get them, abusers find heroin is a much cheaper alternative. At least 11 of these deaths involved heroin, and in Washington County, heroin deaths increased from 1 to 4 in 2014.
Then the next logical thing is to jump over to heroin. And that is a jump because now you're going from, popping a pill, and there's that stigma that goes with it, to either snorting something or eventually shooting it. But once you take that first shot in there, that high, people have described it to me as being so much better than popping the pills that you just instantly, it's there. And it's cheap now, and it's pure.
School resource officers John Somweber and Isaac Tuma say historically pot is the most frequently abused illegal substance among teens.
They always start out talking about it as marijuana. Why? Because it is the most frequently used illicit drug in the world.
Somweber says 4 years ago, students may have heard of heroin, but likely never saw it or knew someone using. But times have changed. The increase of H on the street may be a direct link to the shift.
We've seen a very drastic increase in the number of heroin incidents that, as a police department, would respond to. Where when I started as a police officer in 2003, we would maybe have 1, 2, or 3 heroin-related incidents in a year. In the time that's expanded since then to now, I'd say that we maybe have 2 or 3 heroin-type incidents a month.
Yeah, growing up. I mean, I kind of had a rough childhood.
Corey Clementson is sober and has been for over 4 years, but it took decades of addiction to bring about change.
I remember the movie Drugstore Cowboys came out when I was 12. And I saw Matt Dillon shooting Dilaudid in the back seat of the car, and I knew then. They have the DARE program or whatever says, nobody ever says they're going to be a junkie when they grow up or whatever. And I knew then that I was going to be walking down that road,
Corey's evolutionary journey into drugs began with alcohol as a child, and when he started using heroin, he often used alcohol and other narcotics simultaneously, causing him to overdose multiple times.
The actual experience of overdosing it's nil. It's a blackout. So there's no.
You don't remember.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You hit a blackout period, and then a knockout period, and then respiratory depression, and of course, if you do enough, you skip the first 2 steps and you go right to the other.
Officials say what makes heroin so deadly is failing to realize its potency, and in overdose cases, using the wrong amount.
It's something your body builds a tolerance to. So day 1, maybe you use 1 ml, for example, which is 1/5 of a teaspoon. By the time that you're a month or 3 months into it, you're gonna need enough 5 or 10 mLs to go ahead and get that same feeling. And so somebody who's using it and says, here, I'll share it with you, they're already tolerant. And if they give it to somebody who's what we call opiate naive or has not used to having those types of drugs and not developed tolerance, that dose can kill them.
Survivors, those left behind after a fatal overdose, often wonder what they could or should have done differently, questions Lori Lewis asks herself every day.
Holidays and family get-togethers are very, very hard.
Ryan would have been 24 this past March, and though Lori has made her family's story very public, they endure a very private struggle.
His sister asked if she could have that, and she wants to learn how to play guitar too.
She hopes by helping other families avoid her painful reality, she may begin a new chapter of healing, hope, and change.
I think about him every minute of every day, and that's hard too because I'm so consumed with it.
In addition to helping families, Lori Lewis is hoping better treatment options are made available for addicts.
And she's really brave to share her story, even though it's clear how much she's grieving.
She sure is.
And well, speaking of bravery, check out this next story featuring the dedicated men and women riding for a cause.
We're getting going at 7:30 Saturday morning. All right, so it's Saturday morning, about 9 o'clock. We just passed Rock Creek. All right, we're at mile marker 36 miles into it, and we're coming into Moose Lake. All right, how are you holding up there, Hunter?
Good so far.
All right, way to go. We're just getting into the Hugo area, and is that ever a relief?
So it was 3 of you. It was you and
Hunter Schultz and Rick Roush.
And you all 3 did it. Hunter is a dispatcher, 911 dispatcher for the police and fire department, and
Rick is the husband of Janine Roush, who was a firefighter and EMT, and she just recently retired. So we raised a lot of money. We raised, just last time I checked, just over $3,800, just our team alone.
Just the 3 of you, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we rode 75 miles one day and 75 miles the other day, and I'm pretty well recovered.
And the reason you did it is for
the Multiple Sclerosis Society.
And Paul Munns on the fire department,
yep,
right?
We dedicated,
in particular.
Our team dedicated the ride to Paul Munns.
That's great. And we're going to take a short break, but first, here's Sergeant John Vetty with some life-saving advice.
Hi, I'm Sergeant John Vetty. The 2015 motorcycle season is off to a deadly start. 11 people have been killed, the highest number of rider deaths at this point since 1994. The Office of Traffic Safety suggests 5 key points to safe riding. Assume you're invisible to other drivers. Don't ever assume another driver knows you're there. Look where you want to go. It's called visual directional control. Keep your head and eyes focused 3 to 4 seconds ahead of you when cornering. Counter steer. Use precise endpoints to the hand grips, not body lean, to lean the motorcycle. Use both brakes. And never give up control of your motorcycle. The person with the most control is you. You can learn these techniques by taking a basic or advanced training course. Check out the Office of Traffic Safety's website for more information. Most importantly, don't forget your helmet. I'll see you next time.
Extra DWI enforcement is now being served on Minnesota roads. Don't be what you drink.
Welcome back. The Boatworks here in White Bear Lake has a rich history. Now it has a new face.
Ann Kane is the Community Development Director for the City of White Bear Lake, and she's here to talk more about Boatworks Commons. Ann, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Can you start off by just kind of telling us what your what work you do for the City of White Bear Lake and how long you've been with them?
Sure. As the Community Development Director, I handle all the planning and zoning and redevelopment activities here in White Bear Lake. As a mature community, there's no more room to grow out at our boundaries. So what we're looking to do is intensify our land uses on redevelopment parcels when they're presented to us. And the Boatworks Commons is a public-private partnership that really embodies that effort to revitalize the larger district here, the Marina Triangle District.
So we're going to talk about the Boatworks, and it's a beautiful place here, but most of the time people who might have seen you before, you go to all the city council meetings, right?
I do. I do. As Community Development Director, I'm liaison to the city's Planning Commission, and they make recommendations on land use applications that go before the city council. So I am
a very busy woman.
Yes, busy department we have.
Yeah.
And this has been a busy project for 10 years, is that correct?
Well, it's been about 15 years since the city purchased the property in 1999 from the Johnson family, who operated Johnson Boatworks here since the late 1890s. And in 2003, there was a plan adopted that was followed several years of examining this entire Marina Triangle District, which includes the Kowalski Shopping Center property and goes up to Veterans Park along the lakefront. And that task force of volunteers from the community, from property owners here in the district, the DNR was represented in it, and it looked at what the future vision for this whole district was. And one of the desires of that plan was to really open up the lakefront and create an area where the community could come together, feel safe, interact with one another, and have a variety of shops and restaurant and cultural destinations that would bring them down here to the lakefront.
And just to kind of get a perspective, you already kind of alluded to it, but where we are right now is we have the VFW just over here. We've got Tallies, CJ Hooks over here. So tell us about some of the unique features or some of the features that the Boatworks Commons has here.
Sure. The Boatworks Commons, as I mentioned, is a public-private partnership. It was a very complex redevelopment project because we didn't just carve it up like a subdivision where the city owns this parcel and the developer owns this parcel. What we have here is layers of public and private
uses all on top of one another, with the Central Park, which is a really key component for the city as a gathering place for our community to host events.
That's the grassy area, that very nice grassy area that we see behind us, and very sturdy.
It's a very sturdy grassy area. In fact, underneath the grass, we have a net lawn product, which is designed to be durable, to host various events, as well as accommodate a fire truck or other heavy vehicles in the event of an emergency. That was all part of the long-range planning process when we were working with the developer on the specifics of the Boatworks Commons plans.
Plus you have water conservation in mind with the grassy area. Tell us about that.
We do. Plans evolved over years, and originally about 5 years ago the city had plans for a green roof. Folks may be familiar with that. We have one at our Public Works facility where the roof is planted with materials to allow precipitation to be transevaporated into the air. With the evolving environmental issues here with White Bear Lake and the lower lake level, it was more prudent for us to capture the rainwater from all the roofs through the drainage system, store it in underground vaults underneath this lawn area. We use it for recycling, for irrigation, as well as any overflow that comes through this rain garden here with the bike bridge going over it and eventually into the water, to the lake after it's cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got a boardwalk here. Tell us about the community room. How about that?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's a public-private partnership. There's a lot of public components. I think one thing that's really important and has been a long-term focus of the city was the creation of 114 public parking spaces that's tucked into this building in the footprint. A public layer of parking free of charge for the users. And then some other public components besides the park is the community room, and that is really important. We worked with another design committee of volunteers from the White Bear area that donated time, artifacts, photographs to really commemorate the rich boat building history that we have here in White Bear Lake. Not only from Johnson Boatworks, but Amundsen Boatworks that was also here on this length of the lakefront.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to see that. I haven't seen the community room yet, but it sounds like it's really, really nice. And you know, I'm guessing that some people from the public that really want to come down here, and we certainly encourage them to, because it is so nice here, is what you had mentioned. Oh my gosh, so there's no parking, and when I came in here, there's signs and there's plenty of parking.
Yes.
Right?
There is plenty of parking. We're going to have to do a good job of educating our residents, who I think have always associated this area with having a lack of available parking, but now there is just a tremendous inventory of available parking. Even today, I think I'm only the second car in the ramp. So please come down and experience the Boatworks Commons. A couple other quick items. We also built some year-round restrooms for trail users who want to come down and enjoy the lakefront, as well as those renters who rent boat slips from the city and the marina. And those are located on the north side of the building, and those are open year-round from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
And they're very nice, because I've had a tour of the entire property, and everything is very well done. And the bathrooms are not like your normal public bathrooms. They're very nice.
No, we wanted to incorporate public art wherever we could, and so we used a local artisan who makes handmade porcelain tiles, and she did a wonderful mosaic of the White Bear Lake map on the wall of the vestibule to the bathrooms. We do have plans for a future sculpture in the public park here. We did receive grant funds through the Metropolitan Council to create, it was called a placemaking grant, and really what that is intended to do is create a memorable space that attracts residents and just allow.
Yeah, well, that's an awful lot of great information, and that's we
sounds
can't
like
wait to see it.
a good partnership of a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Together.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Coming up, we'll tell you why there's an important water message in White Bear Lake. During the summer months in White Bear Lake, water usage doubles. A recent water conservation expo held in White Bear Lake educated residents on some surprising water facts. Take a look.
Do you know how many gallons of water you flush every time you flush your toilet?
Many people don't think much about the water they send down the drain on a daily basis, but it might be time to start.
Why now? Why not now?
The city of White Bear Lake recently held a water conservation expo.
And we're here to promote water conservation and clean water initiatives, rain gardens, things you can do to clean your stormwater and promote water conservation, reducing your water usage.
First of its kind event for the city that drew organizations from all over that are dedicated to reducing water usage and promoting good environmental stewardship.
Well, we're here to talk to people about water, everything from groundwater to lakes and rivers and streams, what they can do to keep lakes clean, how they can do beautiful landscaping in their own yards that actually helps to protect the groundwater that we drink as well as the lakes that we fish from, and get people having fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really want to do their part. They just don't know how to make that first step, and we have a lot of great resources to help them make that first step.
Even for the youngest attendees.
Especially when you have families and children, you really want to get them interested in the environment early. And so we've brought, lots of different activities for kids to start making that connection to water as well.
And there you go, you have your own little dragonfly.
There is a reason water conservation is important.
There's such a close connection actually here in this area for surface and groundwater that the water that runs off your property and everything it picks up really goes directly into your drinking water with just some minimal filtering. Watersheds are unique in that we don't follow political boundaries. Our boundaries are actually determined by the direction water flows, and we're kind of a bathtub shape, so wherever the water lands, as long as it flows to an outlet, that defines our boundaries.
Minnesotans have been concerned about lakes and rivers for a long time. It's something that we really value, but a lot of us, I think, had this impression that there was just an endless supply of groundwater, and to realize that there isn't really was a wake-up call for people, and I've had a lot more people asking about how they can reduce their water use, how they can fine-tune their irrigation systems, questions that they weren't asking even 5 years ago.
And these questions become even more important during the summer months.
We perhaps double our water usage in the summer, and that's primarily due to irrigation. So anything we can do to reduce that irrigation load and reduce the draw on our aquifers is really important. So rain barrels would be a great example. You can capture the water off your roof and use that to irrigate your plants.
Another rain barrel.
Way to go. Good for you.
Fill it up. Let's hope for rain now.
Conservation of water is the cheapest, and it will always lower the cost of whatever else gets implemented.
What you plant or don't plant can have a big impact on regional water.
It's flooding this whole thing.
Oh my goodness! And what's happening over here in the river? So what happens when we change from a natural land area and we pave it over, we get a lot more water coming down here, don't we?
Native plants not only require less water, but also have other benefits.
So these are actually native seeds for our ecoregion, so for Minnesota plants. So it's got great things in there for our pollinators like monarch butterflies and honeybees and bumblebees and native bees, and then a bunch of other really good native seeds.
But what about that toilet in your home?
Anything before 1984 is either 5 or 7 gallons. This much water or this much water to remove 6 ounces of liquid, and we all do that 5 or 6 times a day. The waste of water is monstrous, and it wouldn't change our lifestyle at all to go from this to get a dual flush toilet and only flush 6/10 of a gallon to remove liquids each time. And we're still treating water in our houses like before there were cell phones. This is the only planet we have to live on. Without water, we can't live. I got 2 kids who are coming up and think they ought to have water to enjoy when they're my age. It's pretty simple.
Thanks to producer Jeffrey Wilson for that story. It's a good reminder for people to watch their water usage. We'd like to remind you to visit our Facebook page and become our friend. Send us your feedback and let us know what kind of stories you'd like to see on Lake Area Beat.
Well, a sad story locally and throughout Minnesota is too many children are hungry and food shelves need your donations during the summer months.
The good news is helping is easy.
Hunger is sort of a hidden epidemic, and we often maybe think that hunger is far away from us, but in reality, hunger is very close to us.
Laurel Fedema is the Community Engagement Officer for Second Harvest Heartland and says Heartland serves about 400 agencies in Minnesota. They act as a wholesale distributor to food shelves and meal programs in 41 counties. And they're asking for your help during the summer months when many children are at risk of going hungry.
In Minnesota, about 320,000 kids rely on free and reduced lunches in schools during the school year. So you can imagine that when school lets out, these kids are more at risk for hunger, and there's more instability for them on where that meal will come from. So being able to support kids during the summer is really important.
Second Harvest Heartland relies on donations of food, money, and time. Tens of thousands of people volunteer at the Maplewood and Golden Valley locations, and the agency couldn't exist without them.
We just sort it out into separate boxes.
Joyce Crosstag volunteers at the Maplewood location twice a week and has been for 3 years. She's retired and was looking for a way to spend her time helping others while also helping herself.
As you get older, you know, your friends, you lose your friends, you know, little by little. And so coming here, I just made lots of new friends.
Second Harvest Heartland posts volunteer opportunities on their website, as well as specific items they need to be donated. Fedema reminds people, even though summer is a busy time, to remember those who need help.
We all have to pack a lot into those really precious summer months. What I would say is take a minute. If you have children, this is a really great teachable moment to have kids helping kids.
There are many ways you can donate. We know summer is busy for many people, but just take a few minutes and help out some families in need.
Well, we've enjoyed checking out the Boatworks Commons in White Bear Lake today. Make sure you come down and check it out. And speaking of busy, now that your 150-mile bike ride is done, what's next for you this summer?
Yeah, that was a great fundraiser for the MS Society. So people of the White Bear Lake Fire Department are now working on the Relay for Life fundraiser for the American Cancer Society.
And that's July 31st?
Yes, the last Friday in July, so that's Friday, July 31st, goes into Saturday morning. But we're working on putting together some fundraisers like car washes and things like that.
And be sure to check out a Facebook page somewhere?
Yes.
Fire department?
Yep, the Fire Department Facebook page will put
More
some
information.
information on that.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you luck again on your fundraiser.
Thanks, Tracy.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Lake Area Beat. I'm Tracy Minarchak.
And I'm Ron Hawkins. We'll see you next time.